That's fantastic news. Yeah, once again, if you're on the platform Treasury or compliance councils, if you could jump up, that would be fantastic. I think that means Blandix, if you want to join us up here, that'd be great. Tim Mahota, if you want to join. Awesome. Sounds like we've got a bit of a sufficient quorum here to begin. I know that there would be a few more other members joining from the platform and treasury councils, as there are a total of 12, but is a logical starting point. So awesome. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to get things moving here. Welcome everyone to our first platform and treasury council recurring meeting. Today's an important milestone in Telcoin's governance as we begin our regular bi-weekly recurring council meetings. These recurring meetings have several critical functions in Telcoin governance. First and foremost, they provide a forum for sharing information and ultimately transparency with and between the community, the councils, and the broader Telcoin Association membership. They create a structured forum for proposal discussions. They really connect proposals in their infancy on the forum to a process for discussing, debating, enabling the proposal authors, which I'm looking forward to today, as we have a TEL-IP to present, and then us to sort of debate, refine the proposal in advance of making any formal proposals. They enable us to provide regular information about our domain, the general platform, and overall the Treasury, TEL, the various areas that the platform and Treasury councils cover that I'll get into in a little bit. They enable, they ensure there's consistent communication with council members, and then really enable the community to directly engage through Q&A. And at a high level, the agenda today is, pulling this up to make sure I have it right. So we're going to start off by doing some introductions, and then I'll do a little overview of the councils and their responsibilities, the decision-making process they use, and a little bit just overall about the governance system. We fortunately have 3 of the Telcoin network engineers on the call today who are on the platform and Treasury Council, and they'll be providing a bit of a Telcoin network update. Then we'll go through the TEL-IP proposal that was submitted by Coops, and enable him to present and us to discuss, provide input, refine it a bit, and see where we can go with that. Then a little bit of time to talk about any potential TIPs or TEL-IPs that people have just been thinking about and haven't posted yet, but are planning to and want input. And then we'll open it up for a Q&A to everyone. So yeah, once again, really excited to be here. And let's begin with introductions. So could each council member please take a minute to share your background and vision for your role in the council? I'll start with the platform council members, personally myself, and then we could move on to the Treasury Council members. I have been involved with Telcoin since its inception, and my name is Parker Spann, for those who don't know, and was instrumental in developing the governance system that we have today, as well as a variety of other initiatives across the Telcoin ecosystem. I envision a world where we have a connected blockchain through everyone, where they can, instead of a bazillion blockchains that are sort of disorganized and fragmented, I envision a world where Telcoin network through mobile network operators is able to scale a shared network infrastructure for blockchain finance and payments, and ultimately revolutionize the way that we interact with money, goods, services, and generally digital ownership online. And so it's a really exciting opportunity. I think we have a really compelling governance structure, a comprehensive platform model that really incorporates the entire value chain for blockchain finance. And I'm really thrilled to be in this position as a platform council member. I hope to make a solid impact. So next platform council member, want to jump up? Introduce.
I can go.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, well.
Hey everyone, my name is Will Myers. Um, I have been leading the technology engineering department at Telcoin since 2020. Um, for a while now. My vision is to make sure to represent developers as a whole, as a community, and their interests, and to make sure that we can build and realize our dreams and aspirations, so to speak, with the Tailcoin platform as a whole. Make sure that we can build it and realize it. I think that's it. Were we supposed to say anything else, Parker?
No, whatever you want. I mean, just intro and excited about your vision for things.
Yeah,
Nothing.
my work with Tailcoin is mostly around the Tailcoin application, the product. For a while before we kind of split off the Tailcoin network development, I was involved in that, not directly writing code, but involved in that, and then other initiatives that require building websites and stuff and other projects. So yeah, that's me.
Can go next.
Amir, yeah.
My name is contract developer for Telcoin, the company, the application. I originally was doing all the smart contract development for the Telcoin Association, or the organization. Now that's handled mainly by Marcus, who is on one of the other councils. But I created a lot of the original contracts that we have in deployment. And most of my focus in my actual day job is still on the Telcoin platform, but obviously I want to stay involved in the governance stuff. So I do a little bit more of this off the clock. I've been with Telcoin for since 2020 as well. Um, I've been smart contract developer the entire time. So that's a little bit about my experience.
I guess I'll go. I'm Steve Stanfield. I'm on the Platform Council. I am one of the core protocol developers for Telcoin Network. And I guess that's basically why I'm here. Hopefully I'll have be able to help with things and have unique insight as a developer on the level one blockchain, which is kind of what I'm focused on, and what I like to do is the very low level core blockchain stuff. So that's it.
BMO, you want to
Okay.
go? Or Squirtle? Great.
Yeah, hi, I'm Adam. Many of you know me as Squirtle. I've been basically a part of the community since, what was it, end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when it all first started. My background is actually working in crypto as head of commercial. I do this for a few brands. I essentially negotiate deals with the market leading exchanges and brokers. My role within the platform council is essentially to oversee the platform-wide systems and policies. By that, what I mean is essentially the plans, financing, coordinating how we'd implement different improvements or alterations. This can be everything. This is a collaborative thing, so everything is basically down to a vote. Essentially, the whole role of the platform council is to ensure we can create some great policies Communication becomes crystal clear, so we can be the voice and essentially be the middle ground between the two, the team and the community.
Parker, this is Tim. I guess I will go next. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, my name is Tim Mahota. I've been with Telcoin almost 3 years now. I've been a compliance and technology lawyer for almost 30 years. I've created and run compliance and legal departments for broker-dealers, investment advisors, derivatives firms, and fintech companies. And I also was a federal enforcement prosecutor with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm on the Compliance Council for the Telcoin Association. And one of my mantras is it takes a very, very long time to create a good reputation and have people believe in your integrity. And it takes a very short time to lose that. So my approach has always been in overseeing compliance and legal to do things the right way in order to ensure the long-term viability of projects. That's what I'll say.
Hi, my name is Marcus. I work smart contract development for Telcoin. I started working in the Telcoin Association this summer. I've been in crypto since 2017, but somewhat new to the Telcoin community. Thanks for being welcoming, and I'm on the Treasury Council with a focus on development developers.
Hi, everybody. My name is Grant. I am the lead engineer building Telcoin Network. I've been here since 2022, representing validators on the Treasury Council and focused on launching mainnet.
Boom.
My name is Billy. I'm representing the liquidity miners on the Treasury Council. Been around Telcoin for 2019 or so, and looking forward to getting started on the project. Just want to make sure that we can remain sustainable for years to come.
Yeah, I think I'm the last one. My name's Simon. I'm from the UK, and I'm representing stakers on the Treasury Council. Some of you will know I'm also the person who has done the first proposal that I think I'm going to do a little bit of chatting about in a little bit. So, yeah, very excited for what's to come. And hopefully get to interact and discuss lots of exciting things with everyone in the community.
Wonderful. I think that is everyone. If not, please do step up now. All right. So well, thanks everyone for getting those introductions going. I want to take a few minutes to outline our council's roles and responsibilities. So, there are 5 different councils that are elected by the various minor groups, and we are the sort of global councils. We analyze and govern the system as one indivisible facility or system, however you want to infrastructure, and also the primary source of TEL issuance, the TEL Treasury. Once the Telcoin network mainnet is live with 10 validators, this group via the TEL IP process will also govern the network. And the Platform Council oversees, we have 8 members. It's a balanced representation across all 4 minor groups. And when you have a global decision-making body, it makes sense that each minor group should be represented equally on that. We focus on platform-wide improvements and use both the TIP and TEL-IP processes to get things done. The TIP process being more social policies, communication policies, compliance, legal, things of that nature, whereas the TEL-IP proposal process involves the Treasury, and which itself is we use that to allocate towards planning and financing infrastructure improvements to the system. We use it towards allocating towards issuance for miners to harvest and produce the platform. It's a form of incentives, and ultimately we govern the governance infrastructure and Telcoin network via TEL-IP. So the Treasury Council is the second global council, has 4 members. It's also a balanced representation. Well, actually, backtracking, Platform Council is 6 out of 8 votes to approve proposals, and they're 120 hours long. Then the Treasury Council is 4 members. It's also balanced representation, and it adds an additional layer of oversight for Treasury, Telcoin network related decisions, things that require financing and the ongoing issuance policies, as well as the TEL token. And these, because they affect everyone across the platform, require unanimous approval from all 4 Treasury Council members. Without that unanimous consent, then what you can effectively have is sort of voting people off the island in a variety of both indirect and direct ways. And so that unanimity is built into our democratic structure of decision making throughout all of the councils in different ways to ensure that local and global interests are met. And our key responsibilities include reviewing and voting on snapshot proposals, attending, scheduling these bi-weekly meetings or meetings every 2 weeks, providing regular community updates through these meetings and other mechanisms, monitoring various platform systems and the TEL Treasury based off of outcome indicators and metrics for performance, and ultimately enforcing the operational rules or the day-to-day rules, which are things like communication policies, TEL mining policies or harvesting policies, as we've called them, who's responsible for construction and maintenance, adding new, let's say, service providers to contract with the association through the TAO. And so we use Discord for sort of informal community communication to gather preferences and interests and schedule meetings like this, as well as discuss any number of topics in a more informal setting where ideas can flourish through experimentation without any sort of prohibition against freedom of speech and that nature. And the forum itself is for informal proposal discussions, and so these are, I have an idea, and it doesn't need to be some extravagant, incredibly well done proposal. It can be a basic idea, it can be a research question about a potential proposal that you're interested in, and then ultimately we have these recurring council meetings where we can then interview the proposal authors, discuss the proposal based off its merit, deliberate internally with the community and amongst ourselves to gather everyone's preferences, input, guidance, and then ultimately refine the proposals so that we can either refine or reject proposals based off consensus. And then ultimately, if there is consensus, submit those to Snapshot for formal voting. Now I'll hand it over to the Telcoin network engineers, Grant, Marcus, Steve, to give a little update on the status of Telcoin network development.
Thanks, Parker. All right. Telcoin Network is making some big strides. As I think Marcus and Steve mentioned, they joined the project earlier this year, and they've already made leaps and bounds in terms of grasping some complex concepts and just the uniqueness of the protocol and the certain design decisions that are made for the system. So part of that has been seeing a lot of big improvements and both of them making significant contributions to the code base. We've been going through refactoring several of the libraries in anticipation for an external security audit that's going to both simplify the code and just make it more readable, but also performance-wise and cleanliness. So, I mean, all around it, there's been a lot of impact there. Everything from database improvements to the type of data that we're storing to networking, and we've also rewritten the consensus code to be much more readable and again, just friendly for external devs who are coming in to try to wrap their heads around the project as well. So really, really impressed with their work effort and just their ability to get up to speed as quickly as they have. I think in the last update kind of mentioned like releasing the faucet. So that is something that we recently, a milestone that we've recently achieved. Thankfully, there been smooth sailing since the release. Essentially, we did have one particular bug that a few of our users were able to help us diagnose. It was really helpful. I love that participation and feedback from the community. So thank you. And part of that release included some major execution upgrades for building blocks that increased our transaction throughput. So we optimized building full blocks at the worker level, and we're able to reduce the computational requirements for each node. So ultimately, it's like it kind of just puts the resource limit on the bandwidth. And we're using Narwhal as a true transaction mempool. Not to get too much into the weeds here, but yeah, the system design is more efficient. I'd also like to share that we've recently completed the specification for one of the main missing features for hitting mainnet, particularly designing a system to rotate committee members. As validators are staked, they are eligible to participate in validation. Of course, the GSMA full members hold the exclusive privilege to be validators for Telcoin Network. But one of the things that the protocol needs to assess is the node stake. The nodes need to join the network. The nodes need to, withdraw rewards. The nodes need to be able. It needs to be permissionless and trustless. And so that entire specification, though, is under review. It was moved from draft to review process. We are currently implementing the solution in the code now. So that's a big step towards uncovering all the unknowns towards this critical missing feature. We also, part of that specification revealed a need for a syncing strategy for nodes to join the network. The current solution wasn't particularly effective. Steve has been very instrumental in sort of that design decision. So we're also implementing that syncing strategy. I'm really excited about how simple it is in terms of just connecting different parts of the data for the network's availability. So that's also currently under development. Once that's complete, nodes will be able to fully sync to the network to track the canonical tip and execute results independently. So basically tracking the chain. And we've through the work with Marcus and designing the bridge components, we were able to reduce the complexity in designing an agnostic user client that could be run by validators trying to join the network, as well as bridging clients tracking execution and consensus results, and something that's it's trustless and permissionless. So ultimately any user could run this protocol, run a client, and basically follow Telcoin Network blocks as they come out. So I think that was really exciting to just sort of see that. Again, just the perspective of the problem and thinking through it and seeing the core team come together, because this particular solution is simplified and it reduces the amount of code that we have to develop, which is ultimately just getting us quicker to mainnet, but also in a way that's secure because we don't have a lot of moving parts. We have one rock solid solution. So that's kind of. I do also want to point out that we were also able to before releasing the faucet, we were able to address a few concerns that were raised during an internal security audit that ultimately reduced the amount of trust that was required between validator nodes when they're participating in consensus or even trying to just follow the network. So that those are spec'd out and fully designed. I think we've implemented one of them. There's another particularly valid. The way that we validate execution results is still a work in progress. The research and in terms of research and next steps, we are kind of the next steps for mainnet. We need to implement our missing features. So we are spec'd out, designed for rotating validators joining the network, rotating committees, and we feel confident in our bridging solution. And so really it's just a matter of picking up our shovels and digging, which is something that we're particularly good at. So I'm excited to be at this stage and sort of going through the design decisions, double checking our work, thinking through potential problems, security concerns, efficiencies, and putting it down on paper so that it's transparent. We can have the community all see our work, see our ideas before we get too far along down a path. And really, we invite all of you to review it at the tnip.telcoin.network domain. You'll see TNIP2. So please feel free to review that, and any feedback is welcome. Yeah, this, let's see, just going through my notes here, I think, yeah, I think that's it for my particular update. Steve, I see that you have unmuted. I'll pass the mic to you.
Okay. Yeah, just talking a little bit about what Grant mentioned on the sync side. I guess the key, one of the main things we have to be able to do is bring validators online. And like, what if you haven't, if it's 5 years down the road or your validator was off, there's just the general consensus syncing, not so much the chain itself, but the chain, looking at the chain, you can validate that the chain is valid, but this includes, essentially, if you squinted at the consensus output, it was almost a blockchain. So the key thing I'm doing is actually turning, I don't want to call it a side chain because it's really not, it's integral. It'll be completely linked to the execution. Execution piece is the EVM, 100% compatible, but there'll also be essentially blocks that are the consensus output that link back to execution. Execution links back everything, but that gives you all of your signatures that you need to validate that not only is this block well formed, but this block was signed off on by the valid committee at the time. So it's basically work we have to do anyway. It sounds a little bit like chasing a squirrel or something, but it's not really. I think it just makes the mental model for understanding how to like validate the chain make more sense if you're used to blockchains in general. So yeah. You want me to add anything else, Grant, or pass it on to Marcus? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak a little bit on some of the contract side of the developments we've made. Essentially, in the past 3 months, maybe a little bit more, 4 months or so, we've made large strides. There are a few projects that are sort of front and center for developing out the on-chain side of Telcoin Network. As you all probably already know, the one of the major innovations of the EVM and the execution layer of a blockchain is that it's programmable, and so smart contracts have emerged as this really interesting use case for blockchains that go hand in hand and on top of the use case of transferring base layer currency on the currency database ledger. So one major achievement so far that we've completed is we've essentially written the consensus registry staking contract, which handles validator onboarding, epic information, the peaceful transfer of voting committees, and staking information. So I wanted to provide a link to our forum where we have public-facing posts on some of the engineering progress as we complete them. And this one was I posted just 2 days ago after merging the consensus registry contract into our repositories. So essentially, this is the on-chain contract where we will be storing validator information, voting committee information, epic information, as well as TEL tokens that must be staked in order to become a validator. And so it's essentially a single source of truth of consensus information on the execution layer. And this was chosen because the execution layer is readily available for all nodes. All nodes possess a copy of the EVM state and storage, and so they can then cross-reference that to figure out, who is the current validator set, which ones are active, which ones are voting, and also, handle stake. And I'll talk a little bit about that really quickly. Part of the spec for onboarding MNOs as validators to the Telcoin network is to sort of vet these MNOs, establish relationships with them, and onboard them with sort of a white glove experience. And we've made some progress on that front because the way to permission their entrance to the network as validators, as node operators, is to yes, accept TEL as stake. They must stake in order to vote on the network, but also to issue them permissioned NFTs that can only be sort of whitelisted or can only be approved through Telcoin governance. And that way we have a very clear idea of who is running Telcoin network nodes, which MNOs are associated with which validator pub keys. And so the consensus registry contract is also an NFT, is what I'm trying to say. And that's that the minting functionality of it will be controlled by the governance process. So there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot that we've done in the recent few months on building out the network. But I would say that's a large update on the on-chain side. And as Grant mentioned, we've made a lot of progress on consensus and are shifting our focus to bridging the token from Ethereum mainnet over to Telcoin network. So, yeah.
Well said. Thanks, y'all.
Great job, everyone. So yeah, thanks for the network update. Now let's move on to our a major agenda item, which is the TEL IP proposal that Simon Cooper put together. So if you could step up and present your proposal to us for review, that'd be fantastic, Simon.
Sure. Thanks, Parker. Yeah, so create the first proposal on the Telcoin forum, which revolves around exchange listings to a couple of exchanges. I thought I'd bring around as a first proposal something that would resonate well, I think, with the community on the community on something that's a bit of a thorny issue, and hopefully by doing that would sort of as well empower people to sort of have the confidence to make their own proposals in the future. So yeah, Park has made some comments around the proposal on what needed to be refined, which is good. So hopefully we'll talk about some of them and sort of what some of the next steps are. I think just as a general proposal, what positives does it have with going through this with this proposal? Obviously, increased availability for interacting with the token on centralized exchanges, providing alternatives to in terms of geographical locations with centralized exchange availabilities and where they sort of can and can't operate. And I think it will do well in terms of attracting potential users to Telcoin app and Telcoin platforms, and overall it sort of has the potential to increase volume, not just on the token, but maybe as well people who buy the token might be empowered to interact with things like liquidity pools. So yeah, proposal overall is to have, I think, with the vision of Telcoin as an organisation as a whole being, becoming a household name, I think it needs to be something that a token that's available on as many of the big centralized exchanges as possible, and then hopefully we can also sort out kind of issue around Polygon withdrawals on some of KuCoin as well as some of the other proposed exchanges. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, it's definitely something that is like we've heard that a lot of members in the community have expressed interest, and is definitely something that that I think would be beneficial for the token and just for the ecosystem and platform in general. So, Adam, if I'm not mistaken, I think during your introduction, did you mention? Was I correct in understanding you mentioned like that you also have some experience in this sort of work, particularly?
Yeah, so my role is I negotiate with pretty much every exchange and broker in the industry. So my role, I pretty much negotiate end to end. This is usually, so if you're looking at, for example, listings and everything, I think one of the first questions I'd ask is, do we have the cost? Because there is always an associated cost. Some exchanges utilize it as essentially either a donation or to certain funds or trusts there to help. But there's a variety of different ways that exchanges do go about this. But there are always some sort of funds they would need, because they essentially would need the token as well to then utilize and have it on their exchange. So I think my main question would be, do we have a listing manager with certain ones we've spoken to, or do you have the contacts? If not, I can help with that side. And do we have the associated costs that we can run through? Because everything essentially is a negotiation from this side.
Parker, I know you mentioned in the council meeting yesterday that you've done a bit of application to some exchanges over the past 12 months or so. Are you able to provide any info to this council session to where you've applied?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, so before going to that, which we'll absolutely get to, and I'll go through the full list of where we've applied, I actually would like to, sort of open it up, hear Tim's opinion, given, centralized exchange listings and these exchanges generally. Obviously there's a major regime change in the US that is crypto positive. Historically, though, every single exchange that is around that has volume and liquidity, it has probably received some sort of Wells notice at some point in time from the SEC or some otherwise, regulatory enforcement action. And so I think it'd be good if we could have Tim, given his expertise and in securities laws broadly, but also in crypto at the intersection of those things, to provide some sort of legal and compliance considerations for the proposal, and then sort of go back and walk through the different exchanges that we've applied to and the status of them, et cetera, if that works for everyone.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that, Parker. I guess before we talk about the specific exchanges and exchange listing process, I think it might be helpful for a second to just quickly review how the Telcoin Association it operates and gets things done. Because this seems it's like the first functional item that the councils are going to be directing. And so I want to just run through the practicalities of the governance. So really, Telcoin Association is its members which come together into councils, various councils, and each of those councils has a jurisdiction over a certain area to to make decisions. If you think about it in one way, like a human body, Telcoin Association, through its councils, is the brain. It's the governance organization. But it really doesn't have any arms or legs. It's just making the decisions as to how the association operates. And so once those decisions are made, then it uses its subsidiary, the Telcoin Autonomous Operations Corporation, which is a wholly owned subsidiary. That's a corporation that acts in its corporate capacity to carry out operationally the decisions that are made by the Telcoin Association through its council. And then those persons who are working for Telcoin Autonomous Operations, which we call the TAO, then are tasked with carrying out decisions. How they do that, they could carry them out themselves, but I think how we're going to be operating, at least initially, is that the TAO would then enter into service agreements with whatever third parties it reasonably believed were good fits, good service provider for a reasonable price, then to get things done. So, for example, in this situation, you would have Telcoin Association through its council decide, hey, we'd like to list on Coinbase and Kraken. That communication would be sent to the TAO. TAO would then operate with Telcoin. It could operate with anybody else, but Telcoin Holdings, which is a Singapore corporation, which we collectively call Telcoin. And then the employees of Telcoin would go about providing the service, which would be seeking the application materials, completing the application materials, all that, and do that in conjunction with the oversight of the TAO. And various Telcoin Association council members can certainly participate in whatever extent they would like on a personal level with either the TAO or the Telcoin, the service provider. But that's sort of functionally how it's envisioned to work, to sort of not just decide things, but actually get things done. For the specific issue of listings, so let's go back and if the council decides it wants to list on one, two, or how many exchanges, I think the people here who have been involved in it rightly say that different exchanges have different requirements, whether there's cost and how those costs are requested, how much they are, and payments due. So there's a lot of variation in the cost, but also the quality of service and also the reputation and integrity of the exchange. So one of the things that if this council would decide that it would want to list on particular exchanges, I think that matter also needs to go before the Telcoin Association Compliance Council to give its input, so that the Telcoin Association has decided that it wants to go with these two exchanges. Compliance Council says, yes, they are exchanges that are quality exchanges and worthwhile pursuing. And part of it would hopefully be that this council could come up with some bands of what costs it's willing to incur, what outcomes it wants to have, so that the TAO can take that and communicate that over to Telcoin to help Telcoin negotiate the best deal for the Telcoin Association. And Telcoin has done these negotiations with various exchanges, KuCoin, Bitstamp. We've been working with Coinbase and Kraken. So we know how to do it. We know how to get it done. Now, Parker also mentioned that the SEC and so forth in the U.S. many of these exchanges are very sensitive. If they're in the U.S., like Coinbase and Kraken, of course they're sensitive. But even the ones that are in other countries are very sensitive to U.S. law and U.S. regulation. And we are in a very dynamic time now with the recent election. The incoming administration is very pro-crypto. So I think within the next even month or so, we're going to see exchanges, including Kraken and Coinbase, who have been very, very cautious because they've been pursued by the SEC to become much more receptive to opening their exchanges to various tokens. So I think this is actually a great time to move in that direction and approach various exchanges to expand TEL's listing. So I think how I see the decision being made by Telecoin Association, how the decision is carried out operationally, and why I think it's a good first proposal for the association. So I'll turn it over back to you, Parker.
Sorry, if I can just jump in quickly.
Sure.
Also, one aspect that we need to look into is every exchange does have their certain regulatory routes you need to go down. This does vary exchange to exchange, which can have a massive impact on whether we are able to get on there. One of my questions actually would be, do we, so I know we've got offices all over, but do we have essentially a base in certain countries to abide by set regulatory requests? Or, so I know we've got the UK office, there's the US, there's Japan. So would these essentially help us in that aspect to be approved on the regulatory front?
Well, I would say
I think it certainly will help. Yeah. So Telcoin is it's headquartered out of Singapore. It has significant operations in the U.S. and the U.K. It has Japan and Australia as well. It has licenses in other countries, including Canada, and we're currently pursuing Mexico. So Telcoin, the company, has those operational entities and has the basis from which to submit the application. The application, though, will be coming from the Telcoin Association and a subsidiary of the TAO, which is an EU entity. And Telcoin Association is a Swiss association. And so it will be coming out of that organization. Telcoin will be submitting it, but the Telcoin Association on the actual application. I think we chose Switzerland for the Telcoin Association because it has a long-standing history in having associations operate and also do so in the digital asset space. So it's not like we're operating out of the Cayman Islands or something along those lines. I think it will certainly have the gravitas from the jurisdiction and location of the Telcoin Association, and also the experience and knowledge of the service provider to Telcoin Association, which is Telcoin Holdings. The question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for your input there, Tim. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's definitely important that we make that just legal, operational distinction between Telcoin and the association, which is this overarching governance legal entity for the Telcoin blockchain platform and token standard, and Telcoin Holdings, which is one individual member of the Telcoin Association that can carry out services through the TAO via its contract, which any other service provider that could be voted in by the platform council could also provide those services. And an important aspect is that this is generally a new task. Centralized exchange listings do take time, and that it hasn't been, it's not a since it's not a existing task that's within the TAO's budget, then it would need some sort of hourly based or statement of work style approach to financing the actual implementation of the proposal itself, in addition to what would constitute likely market maker loans, which I'll get into in a little bit, and perhaps exchange listing fees, which depending on the tier of exchange, they either have them and they can be very expensive in some of them, and then in other cases they do not charge listing fees. And so just let me provide a little update on our exchange listing efforts and existing market maker arrangements. Those two things are the market maker is a prerequisite for having any exchange listings. It makes markets liquid when there is no previous liquidity, to ensure that orders can be processed in a cost-efficient way at large order sizes. And so generally, if you go to any of these, as you know, Scrotel, there's a market maker partner, and ideally they have some connection with the exchange and some capacity. And so currently we have listings on several exchanges. Bybit we never applied to. They just listed TEL. CoinDCX was recently an exchange that was listed. BitGet and a few others that we've pursued over time that are strategically to expand accessibility and liquidity for TEL. To centralized exchanges have been historically the way for people to get entrance into the crypto space, because the on-chain infrastructure, as well as the sort of connected financial layer, has been obsolete for on-chain finance. But now, as many of you experience in real time, these things are rapidly becoming more and more adopted on chain, with trillions of dollars of exchange volume. So that's exciting, but of course it's still 94% of the total exchange volume is centralized. And so having bridges that enable users from these places that are crypto native to flow from a centralized custodial exchange to a self-custodial on-chain crypto experience that isn't tied to the let's say counterparty risk associated with an exchange like FTX, where who would have known, right? But it all blew up. And so it is an area that's super important. But overall, we have pending applications with several of the tier 1 exchanges, and that actually does include all 3 of the ones that were listed. So I'll just start with Coinbase because it's a large one that everyone is aware of. We applied to them in 2021. I'll tell you that document took me a long time. It was about 80 pages of questions. We then applied again in 2022 as more of a follow-up. Here's some updated information. And then most recently applied in 2024, where I was forwarded to the listing department, who's basically said, hey, we've got it. We'll look into things. And this was, after a lot of times they're analyzing projects based off of the governance institution and how. The term decentralized has been used a lot, but it's really a company versus a communal governance system, a community-led system. That's the critical distinction, where decentralization is like a property that is part of the communal governance structure. Instead of a top-down company making all the decisions, which has been is kind of comes into conflict with securities laws. We have now this communal governance institution, and so we have pending applications at Coinbase, and then we applied in 2024 with the updated info. So we've had 3 apps into them. Kraken was also a very lengthy application in 2021, followed up again in 2022, and then most recently applied. That I didn't apply in this one, but to facilitate the documentation for applying this year in 2024. We've also applied to OKX in 2024 and to Crypto.com in 2024. These were during the year, and after, I mean, there's this massive concentration of TEL tokens that are on KuCoin, and KuCoin is currently in the process of just shutting down U.S. customers. And I don't have some sort of magic crystal ball that says how many of those are U.S. customers, but I am in total alignment with the necessary urgency to try and reduce that potential confiscation of property of TEL holders that are in the U.S. who will no longer be able to not only perform any functions, but even the withdrawal function from KuCoin. I think that's an even longer discussion, because I don't see how an exchange would be in the business of revoking the property rights of its users versus the U.S. when that's the country that is, has the DOJ enforcement action on them and everything. But regardless, it's the situation that we're in, and it's a dilemma because that's a lot of concentrated risk. So. In addition to that, we've to the other ones that I mentioned, we received proposals from Coinstar and MEXC. We have applications with Wobi, BitCub, HTX, Upbit, and then regarding market making, we currently have a partnership with the German-based company Make It Pro. Germany is a highly regulated financial ecosystem, and they operate with a high level of standing and above board in ways that I think it's very important to analyze these various different types of market makers and their jurisdiction and everything. And so overall, they provide liquidity across a variety of these exchanges, which won't get into the specific details about how much is where, but it's roughly somewhere between 25 to 60K USD in TEL per exchange listing, and they've deployed around 158 million TEL across multiple of these different exchanges where they're currently trying to provide liquid markets, including Bybit, which is one of the more liquid exchanges in the world. And so just so people understand how these work, these market makers, and understand the TEL-based financial position of the company as it relates to the association, as it relates to the relationship with them. So basically, instead of charging fees, they operate through this sort of TEL denominated loans that are structured as call options, where basically they have there's a loan date and and a strike price that's 3 days later that they determine, and they're usually 6-month options where we lend them the TEL. They go and provide market making services on those exchanges, provide liquidity, and then each of those and then they basically, it's that strike price is they have the opportunity to at the end of the contract either repay in TEL or in USDT or USD, and also the option to buy the TEL at the initial date at expiry at their discretion. We also, as a protection mechanism for that, given we could, feasibly change market makers at any point in time based off discussions and proposals, i.e. TEL IP proposals, we have a 48-hour cancellation period, so we can tell them that we no longer desire their services, and we can and then within 48 hours they will return either TEL or the USD equivalent of the loan. And so there are protections across that. They're an enabler. They're also one that has provided some transparency reports that we'll share after this. And but overall, like, we have to decide what's the best market maker that we want to use for these things, and who's the most well equipped. And we need to monitor their performance based off their transparency reports to determine whether or not they're doing the job that we want up to the stuff that we need it to, and if there are other alternatives. And so, that is one of the tasks of these councils. And so, yeah, just to high level recap, we've applied to actually those exchanges already, interestingly enough. And of course, I think there's we can continue to try, right? We have a market maker that we have a deal with to provide liquidity to these various exchanges that we got listed on earlier. And ultimately, we're in a position to try different strategies as well. Like, I think one, like, if you take Coinbase, for instance, they have the base chain ecosystem that's been even just according to their most recent quarterly reports, that's the focus of their business, is to bring it on chain. We're the crypto native on chain first company. So I think things strategically, like, for instance, the TELX Council, perhaps allocating TEL to a market on Base that then enables all the Coinbase users to access that TEL, those TEL markets from their Coinbase wallet on Base, is a step in a direction that perhaps could end up being the proper sort of indirect go-to-market strategy for them. I mean, maybe they're just saying, we only want to list things on our chain right now, or whatever it is. So yeah, and then just the last thing, just to reiterate, is we do need to figure out from a financing perspective exactly the hourly rate and the timeline that we would do, and whether or not that's in advance or in arrears. So, but besides that, I mean, I think I've probably alongside some folks in commercial done this much centralized exchange advocacy as possible. And now that we're in this open forum with this communal, more decentralized structure for governance, it's an exciting time to be able to bring this to the floor for the community to ultimately get to where everyone wants to be, which is connected to all the major players and users, so that they can then move fluidly between these exchange ecosystems and our own. So now I'll just open the floor to other council members for any questions or comments on what I said. I appreciate your insights and look forward to hearing from everyone. So yeah, I'll start with the council members. Are there any questions there that like to have me respond to, or Tim, or what are your thoughts?
Hey, Parker. Thanks for all that information. Really helpful. Is there anything, I know you've mentioned, things that will help, such as Coinbase's chain. Is there anything you think would help from, I don't really know how to word it, from a legal side? Like, would it help if, legally, if like Tim sent letters to the exchanges with all the regulatory compliance that that Telcoin has? Do you think that would be something that would help? Do you think SquareTel's help and his knowledge and expertise in the area would be something you'd be interested in? What do you think it needs? Because you said you've been unsuccessful, well, not unsuccessful, but pending, let's say, for a couple of years now with some exchanges. You see listings every day from projects which are probably not as complete as Telcoin is. So what do you think it is in particular is lacking, and what are the things do you think would help?
So I think strategically, it's one thing for me or Tim, people from, now that we've decentralized to the community here and this new, association structure, I think that it would certainly be, I think there's one area that, it's sort of like a declaration of saying, hey, we want to get listed on these exchanges. We've made this decision as a community within this governance structure that is according to all of the things that they have used as parameters for whether or not to list, sufficiently decentralized and organized with practical use case and all those things. I think it would be good to have an approved proposal that was sent to them from a telcoin.org email and sort of continue the existing discussions by saying, look, like the community wants it to be listed on your exchange, they like it, and they've decided to do that in a way that is in line with your guidelines for how these types of things should be governed. So I think, yeah, like getting an approved proposal is a good statement for those exchanges that we can share. And I'd be curious about Squirtel's thoughts. I mean, to me, this is an area that I do think that consultants that are crypto native consultants can. Overall, I think as an association, when we're trying to do things in the real world and we make decisions about how we want to do them, the best way to get those done properly, I think, is to, in a lot of cases at least, especially as we scale, is to use external service providers that have expertise in this and have a successful track record of making that happen. And the fact that we have one on the platform council, it's like, all right, well, you don't have to tell me twice, but I'd love to hear Squirtel's thoughts.
So I think one of the main things is when, like, any exchange you do apply to, it may take a while because it all depends on the person that you do meet. A lot of the people that you say do get listed there, it may be because they're going into certain routes or they've already built the relationship. Many companies, you'll see random tokens. It's not their first token. It's companies behind the scenes or agencies or anything that have actually built a good relationship as well with different exchanges, and they can regularly bring different coins in, different tokens in. Many exchanges also work through a third party or an agency, essentially, that then goes through a vetting process to then introduce to the specific contact or site. Yeah, so it really depends. Every exchange, it works differently in a way, but the overall procedure is usually the same. Was there anything specific, or
is your firm that you work with like one that would be capable of assisting us with getting listed on these various exchanges through its own channels?
I do, yeah. So I do think I could definitely help with that. I've got quite a few different contacts. Some are just in the business development side, some are partnerships and account managers, others are listing managers. So no matter the route, people will know the actual contact. So I'm happy to help in this to see what we can get.
Yeah, and then if we can, I think we should bring some of those people into the fold and try and figure out an arrangement that makes practical and financial sense as a group, and then incorporate that into the proposal once we have their agreement and move forward. And I'm of course happy to facilitate sharing as much information at any time as needed. I'm just kind of looking at the scoreboard on in terms of we've got these exchanges that we already applied to and that we want to get on, and I'm just like, what's it takes time, right? And
yeah,
but how much time is it, or is it worth waiting? And so I'd be curious your thoughts on that. And then if it's already past that threshold, then shall we consider other routes?
So I think it really depends. What I'd have to understand is essentially where we are at currently, because I know there's applications, but then there are different stages of that as well, or different stages of applying as well, to get onto an exchange to be listed. So from that perspective, it's quite hard to answer without knowing a little bit more detail, if that makes sense. But then, yeah, I think depending on where we're at depends on the different routes you can take or what has been tried. So like I said, every exchange, every broker does work slightly differently. And it also depends on the geolocation. So, for example, straight away, I used to work in the gaming industry, and Japan, I used to work for Nintendo. They are very, very different in how they approach than that would be a European or an American company. So each, depending on where the base is as well, depends on how you have to approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, then that just creates a follow-up item, which is to give, if you could share like a bullet list of questions about that, with about what's the process and what's the status and all of that. I have information about that that's been shared with me by commercial, but yeah, if just any guidance you can provide, then I can get answers to those questions. Once Rajesh is back from his week, he's in a big event this week doing ecosystem development, and I think that would be great if you sent those over, and then that would be a follow-up item to get going, and ultimately figure out the path for each of the exchanges that we want to get listed on, and then get set up with some group that is better than I am, and I said getting listed on the tier 1 exchanges, because it's we certainly have tried.
It's a nightmare process. Like, if it's easy, everyone would be on it. It's they make it hard on purpose as well, because they want that essentially scarcity of everyone to fight for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then it comes down to financial things too. It's like, how much are we willing to spend on each exchange and why? But I think first, we'll get some more detailed information for dissemination amongst the council, and I think that it's probably just better tactics to not post full exchange listing timelines. It's a really strange thing, right? Because we have like this, they say like you've applied, that like don't talk about it to anyone ever, but it's like, okay, well, that don't talk about it to anyone ever. Okay, well, that's, I guess, people outside of the group that is requesting listing, which is the association, and so it's like it's a weird process. That's basically what I'm getting at, where it's like very guarded. But now that we're in this structure, it's more conducive to being able to share this information openly and get things going. So
yeah, no, perfect. I'm happy to definitely help with this. If we pick up after the call, then just so we can get more information, I can then send across bits and we'll go from there.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll need a couple days. Well, Rajesh is done tomorrow. I think I'm just going to catch up with him tomorrow just to get. I have the full list of where he applied and when, with sort of very high level bullets. It hasn't been my focus this past, say, 6-7 months, to focus on exchange listings at all. And so, yeah, I'll see what more precise info I can get, and I'll get you the high level stuff that I have now right after the call, and we'll see what we can do with that. I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, so it's basically market makers. Would you say that those are a requirement on all tier one exchanges for TEL?
Most, like in a sense, most likely, but it all depends on the listing manager and what is negotiated, because there's always a little bit wiggle room with each.
Sure. And they might have their own market maker that they require you to use or something like that, which is the case in India. Okay, this is great. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this exchange proposal discussion, either from the community who are welcome to come up and join or otherwise?
One quick thing, Parker, you already said, but I wanted to highlight because I was briefly involved in a couple of them, is that just doing the manual labor of filling out the forms takes a lot of time. And so we're going to have to, like you said, budget it out with an hourly something for the person or people who are actually going to be filling the forms out.
Right.
KuCoins was insane. I remember that one was particular. Not KuCoin, Kraken.
Yeah, I mean, Kraken took me 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And
I remember I filled out a whole section way back when, and
I wasn't procrastinating at all. I literally was pen to paper for 2 weeks. Like it was insane. And I know that the most recent one was someone else did that, and they might have a new, process. But yeah, like it is very time intensive and does require that people get, there's financing to undertake that. I mean, I think that probably the best bang for our buck here would probably be to work externally with some agency that specializes in this, but in finance that way. But we'll just continue down this
and
discussion.
it also requires information from various different people. Compliance, technology, business development, lots of different random parts to the application.
Indeed. So yeah, that's a great point. I appreciate you adding some more color there. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments on this proposal?
Just a quick question on costs. Not necessarily what it costs, but when you've applied to exchanges in the past, what has been if you were to be successful, what has been the source of funds? Let's say if it costs 50K, is the 50K generated from the sale of tokens to generate funds, or does it come from sort of investor funds, if you get what I mean?
Well, so any exchange listing payments have come from the TEL Treasury, and those were only like this most recent year, and we shared the line items for that in the TAO update. Yeah, there were a few exchange listing costs associated with it that it seems like if you're not top 5 exchange, then they like always have exchange listing fees. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but and then like your Binances, they make you donate to a charity, and then Coinbase and them. Recently, I heard they're making people pay a lot of money, but I've never seen anything like that. So
there was that whole discussion between Binance and Coinbase, whether one company said that Coinbase charged them, or one said they didn't, and then one company said that Binance charged and one that didn't. So it seems to be
I mean, I heard that
area.
percent of their token supply, which was $50 million, and I'm like, what are you even like? What's that? To me, that is so far beyond what that is worth to any like crypto network and token. Like, it's crazy. So yeah, it's an interesting area that I think requires some further involvement across. I certainly will get all the information that I have to you guys about previous exchange listings and facilitate the strategy further in that way after this, and then more info when Rajesh is back. So there's a community member that has been requested to speak, so I will bring him up. Welcome, Matt.
One of our council members from another from the other sector.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, guys, or morning, whatever it is there. Can you all hear me all right?
Yep.
Cool. So listening in on this, and I've always had probably an unpopular opinion in the community as it relates to centralized exchanges. I'm more of a individualist in that manner, and like the idea of DeFi and just taking control of my own financial situation, if you will. But I guess I got to ask, I didn't hear it touched on, but what does this mean for Telex? What does this mean for our current liquidity pools, the fees, the volume, kind of the visibility? I guess I kind of almost see this as competition, right? From opening this up to a broader audience, which certainly, yes, I get the visibility argument. But I guess I'm struggling with how I think about that through Telex. Is there like some comments or thoughts around that?
Yeah, I personally have thoughts, which is like, I think that's a, really, really good point. Where we're trying to, incentivize a global on-chain ecosystem that powers financial services. And, then we go and instead of allocating those tokens to, new markets or what have you on Telex, we decided to go and get it listed on centralized exchanges. I think on one hand, it's, in the preference, it would be interesting to gauge the preference of everyone in the community on this, just from a yes, no standpoint, just is to like, is this something that you want? I think, and I'm glad that there is like a sort of dissenting opinion, or at least skeptical one, because it is something worthy of being skeptical about, given, that is the mandate of the Telex Council. But I think but my sort of, response to that from the other, the devil's advocate perspective is that, of course, there's all these users that are on these large exchanges, and by having they can access, they can then take that TEL and bring it into the Telcoin ecosystem. It gets more visibility. It gets more potentially institutional access. Institutions, as far as large hedge funds, and that's about as exotic as it's going to get. They, for the most part, just their compliance is like, no, there's no on-chain exchange for us right now. And so that's why there's still like, I think 94% of volume is off-chain, but the goal is to bring it all on-chain eventually. And we have to decide as a group if it is in our interest, and based on that, and also what the preferences of the community more broadly. So yeah, I don't have a perfect answer to you, because I think it's a very good question, and one that I, sort of agree with in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I think of, over the years, the amount of people that have tagged me on Twitter and said, get listed here. When, by the way, I was trying to get listed there. If they just literally tell you that you cannot talk about it, and now, we're under the association, so we can talk about it. And so, yeah, it's a really great question. Does anyone else have thoughts on this?
I mean, one thing from kind of my background is that Telex powers the app and all of the DeFi trading in the app, and the app is very much entrenched in DeFi, and that's not changing. So, yeah. Seemed like you were a little worried at the beginning. So I would say, don't be worried.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily like a worry or a concern. I guess I'm playing kind of devil's advocate only in the sense that I totally get the community's request and desire and selfishly, yeah, it'd be great to be on Coinbase, but I don't always know if the desired outcome will be achieved, and maybe it would have 4 or 5 years ago when there wasn't 4,000 tokens out there and it was all hype and volume driven. I feel like a lot of times that's what the exchanges are looking for, right? Is just volume through their platform for them to collect fees and make money on. Where I take a different, I guess, approach on that, where it's more like, well, if I want to take the individual initiative to go out and join a pool and contribute liquidity, and certainly there's risks, right? There's impermanent loss and the other things that go with it, but I would like to, I guess my preference would be to promote and the words escape me, but promote and talk about like the telex capabilities and the possibilities, and then have exchanges take notice of that and say, oh man, look at all the volume that's going through those. We want a piece of that pie, and almost in reverse. So maybe that's where I'm coming at it from, but I wanted to get the council's thoughts on the
Yeah.
proposal and where things are going.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts there, which is I think every exchange. One thing to note is that remember when we had the Telex liquidity pool on Ethereum, that thing was doing a crazy amount of volume despite the fees being insane. And we have migrated all of Telex over to Polygon, and a lot of exchanges don't have to deposit withdrawal, and so to Polygon. And so I wonder, if maybe it's something that we like, get markets on one market on Uniswap or something on Ethereum, and then one on Base, and then maybe overall the sort of ecosystem development strategy for exchanges is this route of incentivizing telex pools that are on their native exchanges, which every day I see a new exchange, like not like Telcoin Network in the sense that it's like meant to be like all these people producing this monolithic blockchain, but really more like these layer twos that are like centralized sequencers and stuff. Like they're all launching their exchanges, and so there's I think a go-to-market strategy there that is at our disposal with Telex that maybe portion of what would go towards financing the exchange listing would be like part of a comprehensive strategy that includes incentivizing pools on those networks to get get them to take notice. I mean, I think that if there's a I'm just guessing. I have literally no idea, but I feel like if there's a liquidity pool on Base that's got a ton of volume flowing through it, that how is Coinbase not going to take notice of that? What would their reason for not, adding that token be at that point? Or what more could we even do, really? So I think it's a great subject, and one that we can use, incentives to maybe get a seat at the table in these discussions in a way that doesn't take away from Telex, but rather connects Telex to all the exchanges.
Yeah, like be more complementary in nature as opposed to competitive.
Exactly. And I think the starting point there is like an Ethereum pool and a Base pool, and that would be like probably something that I would push for. But hey.
Noted. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming up. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, Squirtel?
Yeah, sorry, just on that. So from the council kind of perspective, where we've got, for example, we're going exchanges and then actually in the Telcoin side, the ecosystem and everything. So do you see both of them being on the same customer journey route? Because from my perspective, I believed it was telecoms, mainly in not really as crypto savvy, gives them access to purchase via that way, because I believe Telcoin was the white label product, or it was many years ago is essentially said as it could be the white label of them, so it'd be powered behind the scenes by Telcoin. And if so, then the crypto audience from the exchanges would be a complete different audience. So you'd be opening essentially another, not revenue stream, but another stream of customers that would be savvy to crypto. So it's two separate audiences. That's from my perspective, but it would be interesting to hear everyone else's on that, because they just complement each other. I understand you want everything to go through the ecosystem, because that would be the most beneficial way. But is there, do you see both sides being complementary to each other, or two separated essentially streams of new customers, new clients, new token holders?
Yeah, I ultimately wrestle this question a lot, and I think that they are complementary up to a certain amount of costs, whether that's time, resources, money, risks, whatever are associated. I think, is it but overall, in terms of, on-chain liquidity pools and centralized exchanges, especially with the institutional thing that we noted and you just mentioned, I think it can be a gateway to getting people into this ecosystem and from all over the world in new ways that, I wonder, for instance, how many people came from KuCoin and found about Tel, and then now they're a Tel holder and they're part of the community, and so that sort of, I think, is the approach that how I would look at it as a model for this. But then ultimately, it's like, well, now there's 20 billion Tel on KuCoin or whatever it is, and it's like that that has some costs associated with it. So we have to choose the ones wisely. But yeah, I think if executed properly, they're very symbiotic, because you have these exchanges that connect directly to the networks where the liquidity pools would be on. That naturally creates price differentials that people are going to try and arbitrage, creating more volume. More volume gets more fees drives more liquidity. And so in that way, there's a positive feedback loop. But then, like going out and paying exorbitant exchange listing fees to me versus, incentivizing Telex pools with a similar amount is, I think, something to weigh.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
All right. Do we have any other hands raised to come up here and jam out with us in this first very successful and exciting meeting? If so, please raise your hand. We'll give it a few seconds here and then go to the next agenda if not. All right, we got Matt Tosti. Hello, Matt.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Just want to say thanks for doing this, letting us chit chat with you guys. I'm a strong Tel holder, and to answer your question about KuCoin, I got involved with KuCoin, found out about Tel, and I'm on the app. But just to voice my opinion, I think definitely spreading out a little bit, trying to get a couple more American-friendly exchanges would be awesome. Just to give people the opportunity and access to get involved with the Telecoin community.
Yeah, that's great input, and it's good to hear more preferences from the community and your experience with KuCoin, and it's something that I think we probably incorporate into outcome indicators for this type of proposal. How our performance metrics. What are the outcomes precisely that we're trying to achieve here, and I think that's getting new users into the Telcoin ecosystem, and then ultimately driving more liquidity and volume across the aggregation of centralized and decentralized exchanges, with the target of bringing it all on chain once that's feasible, but recognizing that we're in a world where there's 94% centralized, and we've got to kind of bridge people in, just like Matt, to the ecosystem. So that's really helpful. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, man. Thanks for all you guys do.
All right. So are there any other hands in the audience for this proposal, or shall we move on? All right. Not seeing anybody. So let's see here. So moving on to any upcoming proposals that people are considering. Are there any right now that anyone wants to talk about? I'll just start by saying there's probably a TIP and TEL-IP that I'm working on, but I haven't gotten to the point where it's like one of them is just an overall question about what is the best possible communication channel we can use or system we can use to coordinate. Is it Discord? Is it something else? What are the alternatives? And so that's something that, I would just open for people to think about a little bit. I'm not like saying, jump in unless you, of course, have thoughts on this, but it's definitely an area that I want to figure out. Discord is, of course, used by so many communities, and we're all, sort of Discord natives because that's where the Telcoin communications have been for a while. But yeah, just that's one area that I'm curious about adding. And then I think we'll likely need to do some additional financing for Telcoin network auditing, and those are the ones that I have that are top of mind. And I think outside of this, our group of authority, the other councils, I'm very intrigued to see the commencement of TAN issuance for stakers and developers, so that we can drive application layer usage through incentives in a way that is compliant. That we've spent a lot of time devising a workable solution for making a user owner model within a private / connected to association led infrastructure. So we're like getting stakers in a position to harvest issuance like liquidity miners to me is major. Liberty Lad, you're up. Can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep, you there.
Hey, no, just a quick recommendation about the platform to use for communication. I would personally, I would love to see whatever platform we do use as the official communication channel, that maybe we could somehow, and I'm not a tech guru, so I'm not sure, but I would imagine it's possible to also put this into like a live spaces on X, just because I feel like, especially with the new, President Trump getting in there and Elon Musk getting in there and everything like that, being on a social media platform where it's a public forum space where basically if anybody sees a whole bunch of people in a room, they could just join up, might be beneficial, just getting the word out there, on top of whatever platform we use as a, our official platform of communication.
Yeah, I think that's I've thought about that a little bit myself. And the initial idea is just that, we have this association, this community, and, it's going to discuss certain things that are, community internal matters, and, bringing that out into the public, does that reduce the sort of club aspect, or is it more, something that we should bring open and talk about on X? Things like exchange listings and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm open to doing that for sure. And yeah, like I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Tim, do you see any reason why we wouldn't do that?
Or even if it's just like we still operate it through whatever, like just like how it is right now, but it's just airing over the X spaces or something like that. Just so it's at least available.
Tim said you don't see any issues with that? I think he said he doesn't see any issues with it.
Okay, just a recommendation. I would like to see it personally, but I was just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that's
good. Yeah, correct. I didn't see any problem with it.
Perfect. Well, then let's figure out how we can do that. Right. Thanks, Liberty Lad. Now, yeah, overall, really excited that we were able to get through this. If anyone has any other proposals they want to share right now, I know that we've gone almost 2 hours now, which is kind of cool because it's felt shorter than that, and that's usually a good sign. But yeah, so if anyone has any other proposals they want to share, please feel free. Otherwise, community-wise, if you all want to come up and ask some questions, you're more than welcome, and we'll address them. And if not, we can close up the meeting for the day. So we'll give it a little bit of time for people to join the convo if they'd like to. Otherwise, we'll close it up.
Hey, Coops, nice work being the brave first submitter of the proposal.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's that putting yourself out there. Love it.
Yeah, and I really encourage everyone to do that. I mean, we're all experimenting. We're at the frontier of technology and human organization right now. So don't feel like going into a form proposal, you're putting yourself out there in some way that everyone's going to scrutinize you for even considering it. And also in a correlated way, we should be open to whatever people propose so long as they don't, involve others without their consent or breach, the values of the association, like privacy, for instance. And, overall, I really I hope that we can foster, a spirit of experimentation and innovation and openness towards new ideas, and that no one feels like they're, an idiot for posting something. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be too crazy. If you want to get it approved, you're going to have to, make it work. And, we, through these types of processes, can do that. But yeah, really exciting times. Really thankful that everyone was able to join and provide input, and let's go send money smarter.
Perfect. Just a quick one to end as well. For the community side, if you have any great ideas or anything like that, or any improvements, please do approach a councillor, one of the council members, and just speak to us. Let us know, because if there is merit to it, we can then help to write that.
That's right. Great point. And anybody has the ability to propose them on the on the forum as well. So if you prefer to just write it, and if you got the gift of writing, just put the community can also post on the forum. But yeah, great advice, Adam.
I did want to bring up one thing about it'd just be nice to get some information as far as I know Andrew does a lot as far as the spreadsheet goes with TEL incentives and things like that. It'd be nice to get all the information as far as, for our sustainability and for incentives to liquidity miners and stakers and things like that. If we would get all the information as far as what is paid out in TEL, what we expect in the future as far as revenue for transaction fees and things like that, just kind of put that maybe in the back of our minds as far as information we would need to make decisions for where to allocate incentives in the future as those change, as far as players coming in, as far as the application network and and things of that nature. And also, just for another thing that I thought maybe people would want to discuss or I'd like to get some opinions on is, going any excess funds we have in the Treasury. Just think about maybe going on the Bitcoin standard as far as, saving money in the Treasury as opposed to, USD or whatever we currently are using. Just a couple of things to consider and think about, and maybe we can spitball and get some more information on that stuff next time.
Yeah, the data is like a Dune Analytics or one of these other things that can basically track tel flows and locations of issuance and everything in real time. So yeah, thanks for sharing. So I guess that about wraps it up, everyone. Great job. Really thrilled to get this meeting going. I appreciate everyone's attendance and taking 2 hours out of your day. A lot of people are, in Europe and all over the world. So yeah, joining is fantastic. Everybody who came up, it's just been a very positive experience that I hope to, continue and hopefully serves as a solid example for the upcoming recurring council meetings with the TAN and Telex councils. So thanks everyone, and I'll look forward to the next one.
Thanks, y'all.
Stay, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys.